Well, good morning. You joined me on the 2025 Aprilia Tuono 457. So what's made me so excited about the Tuono 457 in particular? Well, as you know, Aprilia is pretty well known for making some of the best handling bikes out there. And if you have your A2 license, so what this bike is designed for, 47 horsepower, you're not going to have all the power in the world, but you are able to use all of the power, and having an excellent chassis, like I expect this Tuono to have, just allows you to make advantage and make use of it 100%. This bike has confused me in many ways. I've been riding it for the last week. There's a lot of things I really like and really appreciate, but also a lot of things I am not a big fan of, or I personally would have liked to see differently. So yeah, come along with me on a nice little day ride on the 2025 Aprilia Tuono 457.
I want to tell you a little story. So, about 4 years ago to this day exactly, I had an Yamaha MT-07. It was my second MT-07. I loved it to bits. I fully customized it, did a custom paint job on it, quick shifter, exhaust, just everything you could want. And it was the first motorcycle I actually, personalized to my own taste. So, to paint the picture, I woke up one morning, just a regular old morning, and walked down my stairs for my breakfast. And I always park my bike in our front garden, next to the front door, and we have a glass window in our front door. So, walked down the stairs, passed by the door, and I was like, wait a minute, something's not right. So I walked back, and you can probably guess it, the bike wasn't there. And at first I was like, what's going on? Like, did I park it in the back, or did I park it around somewhere else in the street, or did my dad move it or something? So, put on my shoes, went outside, bike's nowhere to be found. And the weird thing is that at first you are in kind of like denial, like this must be some mistake, or maybe someone took it for maintenance, or someone is playing a prank on me. But yeah, after about 30 minutes of searching around the neighborhood, it finally started to set in, and the fact that, yeah, my bike was stolen. The reason I'm telling you this is because all of that might have actually been prevented if I had one of these. So this is the Monimoto MM9. So Monimoto makes these GPS trackers, and they are for motorcycles, but you can also put them in your car. So I put one in my dad's car. You can put it in your boat, you can put it on your ATV, whatever you want. And it's very easy to use. So you just set it up, you pull out a little tab on the battery, you link it to an app, and then every day you just get a notification that it's armed. It comes with a little key fob. And if the Monimoto detects your key fob is not in range of the tracker, so when you're not with the bike and the bike starts moving, you get a call on your phone. So no notification or anything, but a call, because those are of course most likely to get through to you and are usually the most urgent. And then you can go into the app and you can start the live tracking, and you can actually follow where your bike is. And in case it does get stolen, you can contact the police, which is actually what happened with a friend of mine. He had a 1250 GS, and that actually got stolen with the Monimoto tracker inside. And he was able to work together with the police to get his bike back, but also track down the entire ring of the criminals. And I think they got like 7 or 8 bikes back. It was crazy. I have a discount code, which I will link in the description. It's RIG10. You can use it at checkout on the Monimoto website. And as the name suggests, you get 10% off. So huge thank you again for Monimoto for sponsoring this video. And I hope I and you will never need their tracking services, but it's good to have the peace of mind.
So let's get off. Let's Let's start off with the biggest factor to me. Oh, look at this. Ooh. Which is always the engine. First thing you know is when you get on a bike and you ride away is of course the engine characteristics. There's a dog over here, just standing in the road, okay. And again, it's polarizing on this bike. Like, if you keep it between 4 and 8,000 RPMs, it's lovely, it's very smooth. It has a nice sound, the power delivery is very nice. It behaves like you would expect this kind of engine to behave, But the first thing, when I went on the highway and I revved it out, it goes to 10,000 RPM. After 8,000 RPM, it just stops making power, and there's a really, really bad vibration. Like, I don't know, it feels not nice. It feels a bit nasty, maybe even. Like there's so much buzzing through the foot pegs, and it's a really high frequency, so it almost hurts in a weird way. And I'll get back to why I think that is in a second, but for now I want to talk about the round town manners. The suspension is pretty firm, as you might expect from an Aprilia. It's very sporty. It is adjustable, which is very nice. Pretty rare in this class. I think only the KTM also has adjustable suspension. So if you want, you can fiddle around with it a little bit. Other than that, around town, it's just a very pleasant motorcycle to ride. As it should be, as you would expect from an A2 bike. It's just very friendly, everything is easy to use. The throttle is smooth, the engine is smooth, the gearbox works really well. So, yeah, riding position is good. I have, I don't know, a decent amount of leg room. The seat is really low, so ground access is really good. You have a nice handlebar, a big handlebar, so you get a lot of leverage for riding around town. And one of the biggest selling points Aprilia has with this motorcycle is the fact that it has an aluminium, whatever you want to call it, frame, and it only weighs 175 kilos wet, which is very good. It's almost as light as Duke 390, which is a single cylinder, so that's pretty wild that they've been able to make a twin almost as light as a single cylinder. And you do actually really notice that around town. Now let's get back to the engine, because I have a little bit more room over here to stretch the legs. And you will notice it has a pretty nice induction noise. The exhaust is pretty quiet, but every exhaust is these days. But let me show you what I mean when I rev it out. So the gearing is pretty short, but look at how long it takes to reach the red line when I get past 8,000 RPM. See, so I don't know, it just, mid-range is fine, top end, it just doesn't feel nice. And the reason why I think that is this bike has been made so specifically for the A2 license. The person from Aprilia mentioned it has 47.2 or 47.3 horsepower. So exactly on the legal limits with what you're allowed to have on an A2 license. But I think that's where the issue lies, in that this engine probably makes more power than that. It feels pretty beefy. And then the fact that it just stops making more power after 8,000 RPM just makes me feel like it's been kept, you know. It's been, they've altered the software, they've altered the fueling, and they've just made it so it does adhere to that A2 ruling exactly. But that doesn't feel like a very rewarding riding experience, because as you can see, the chassis is that good. And it does allow you to really rail it through the corners and use all of the power. You want to rev it out. And of course you want to rev it out. It's an A2 bike, you only have 47 horsepower, so you want to make the most of all of that. But then it doesn't really reward you for revving it out. And I think that's, up until this far, my biggest issue with the bike. Now, the next part that kind of confuses me, or leaves me a bit confused, is the quick shifter. Don't get me wrong, it's very cool that an A2 bike comes with a quick shifter. I mean, it's an option. I think it's like 200 euros, the person from Aprilia told me. So I like that. I like giving the A2 riders the possibility to explore the use of a quick shifter. I just think the execution could have been better. It works, of course. It's up and down, so you got the quick shifter up and the blipper down. But it's just not very smooth and not very pleasant to use in my experience. So I mean, I've actually found myself using the clutch sometimes to shift instead of the quick shifter, which doesn't sound like a huge deal, but just the fact that it has the quick shifter, but I don't prefer using it, kind of makes me feel like, why even bother having it, you know? So yeah, another point that leaves me a bit confused or conflicted.
You know, all of this talk about riding modes and quick shifters and TFT dashes and all of that extra stuff, I'd say, on an A2 bike has gotten me thinking, like, how much stuff do we really need on a bike like this? Especially considering the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of the engine. I mean, at what point do we say, just screw all of the extra stuff and let's put all of our R&D budget and all of our asking price into the bike itself. You know, it just feels like also with the quick shift that Aprilia could have done just a little bit of a better job with the fundamentals and the basics of this bike, and then skipped some of the fancy extras, which in my opinion don't really add that much to the riding experience, especially on an A2 bike with 47 horsepower. I mean, this thing has illuminated switchgear, which is nice on a BMW, which costs 30,000 euros, you know, where we've got enough R&D budget to also fully develop the rest of the bike. But it feels like with the Tuono 457, they've kind of tried to bulk up the spec sheet. And I know that's kind of what manufacturers have to do these days. They have to add all these features to compete with the other bikes and to make impressions on customers and to show you all of the value you get for your money. But I do think there's a lot to be said about just nailing the basics, you know. Just look at, for example, the Honda GB350 around a couple of months ago. Very basic motorcycle, basically didn't have anything on it. But the fundamentals worked so well, you know. The brakes worked well, the engine was very fun and very characterful. It was just a whole complete package. And that's just kind of a little bit what I'm missing with this Tuono 457. Does that make any sense? Do you agree with me? Like, should we focus a little bit more maybe on the basics and not the spec sheet in the showroom? Let me know, maybe I'm crazy. And there's a tractor coming, so I gotta go.
Really nice lunch. Keeping with the typical traditional Dutch fashion, I went for some kroketten, which basically, if you're a little bit familiar with Dutch food, it's a big bitterbal on some sandwich bread, and yeah, it's just like the standard food you have over here if you're sitting on at a restaurant outside in the nice weather. And it's a lovely spot, honestly. I mean, it's not that far from the road, and you can see the cars from there, but you don't hear them at all. And there's just like big bunnies or rabbits and gaggles of geese and cows, and you do feel like you're properly in nature, which I'm a big fan of. I find myself always being my best self and being my most authentic self when I'm in nature and in a little bit more of a calm environment. And we don't have too many spots like this over here in the Netherlands. Usually all the restaurants and the coffee stops are located in the city, which is of course convenient if you're with a friend or something, but if you just want to ride your bike and then have a nice lunch in peace and quiet somewhere. I know in the UK they have a lot of those farm shops where you can get a coffee and really good food, but over here, especially in my region, in the Amsterdam region, as far as I'm aware, this is pretty much the only spot where you're able to have lunch in the middle of a field. So I do hope that a lot more restaurants and companies do adopt that concept, because, you know, I like it. Oh yeah. Bob. Oh yeah. Oh, third gear in the mid-range, that's just the sweet spot. Oh yeah, you get a nice induction noise, you get some good torque, the engine pulls cleanly, and it's just the right speed, you know, not too fast, not too slow, and it feels really darty and agile around these lanes, so it's easy to dodge the cyclist and the crossing cats and cars that might pull out of a junction. So yeah, theory, Tuono 457 made for tight B lanes, seems to be looking pretty good. And then when you do get to a longer corner like this, the suspension does work really well. It does give you a lot of support. You know, some bikes, they tip in very easily, but then when you get to a long corner where you need more stability, they can feel a bit skittish. But because Aprilia knows how to make a good handling bike, and they've thrown on some pretty good suspension, actually some pretty sporty suspension, even though it is very light to throw around and to tip in, it does still give you a lot of confidence to lean it over maybe make a mid-corner correction like when you come across a cyclist like that. And it's definitely not intimidating at all, which is exactly what you want on an A2 bike, which is aimed at beginners. Yeah, this is fantastic. And this does give me a lot more of the R660 vibes I had a couple weeks ago, where I can just feel it's made for a twisty road. Like look, the corner speed for a quote-unquote beginner bike, you can just I mean, yeah, okay, I don't have words for it. The corner speed you can carry on the bike like this, it's crazy. Oh yeah, it feels so planted, so nice. So I definitely do have my niggles with this bike, like the engine, like the quick shifter. If you just put it in third gear on a twisty road like this, use the mid-range and enjoy the chassis, enjoy the corners, it is fantastic, and it is what you would expect from a proper Aprilia. The brakes are pretty decent, like they're you know, not too sharp, which is nice for beginners. It does have an adjustable lever, which is also nice. I like to keep the lever as close to the bar as possible. And yeah, they definitely have enough bite to stop the bike. It's a fairly light bike, so it doesn't need the most beefy of brake setups. So let me demonstrate the merging speed of the Tuono 457, third gear. See? Definitely plenty fast enough. So anyone who tells you an A2 bike with only 47 horsepower isn't fast enough to go with the flow of traffic, they're just wrong. It's plenty fast enough. So what's it like on the highway? Well, in short, very capable actually. Something you might not necessarily expect from a small to mid capacity naked bike, but the engine is very smooth. It still has a decent amount of roll-on power. The riding position is pretty comfortable. I mean, you're set very upright. One downside I do have to say is the leg room. I am 185 centimeters with long legs, and yeah, because the seat is so low, which I understand because they want to keep it accessible for the beginner riders, does mean that the foot back to seat ratio is quite tight. And yeah, that's pretty much my only complaint when it comes to the riding position. I have done a couple of longer rides and the seat is actually quite fine. There's not a lot of turbulence because it's a naked bike, so you're not in the buffeting of the windscreen on a touring bike. Yeah, it's just very capable, and I think you could do some proper trips on this. So yeah, thumbs up, big thumbs up actually, for the Tuono 457 on the highway.
Alright, so it's the end of the day, and where does that leave me with the 2025 Aprilia Tuono 457? Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, before I got on this bike I was very excited. I had very high expectations because this is exactly the kind of bike that's pretty much made for me. So I do want to mention that because that gives a little bit of context about what I'm about to say next. And that's when I first got on this bike I was a little bit disappointed, mainly by the engine. But again also by the small rear tire and the fact that the quick shifter doesn't work as well as I would have liked. Yeah, kind of just left a little bit of negative first impression. But I do have to say, as I've ridden this bike more and more, I have seen more of its strong suits. So the fact that the handling is actually for this class basically perfect. I would definitely say it's class leading. The engine does work very well in the mid-range, so if you go between 3 and 7,000 RPM, it is very smooth. And it does make me believe that if you give this bike a full exhaust, or maybe just even a slip-on, and then give it a tune, so you can unlock the full potential of this engine, maybe get rid of the vibrations in the top end because of the A2 restriction, I think it would be an entirely different bike. So yeah, it's been an interesting experience. Generally, when I test a motorcycle, I kind of know what I feel like after a couple of hours. But on this Tuono it definitely took me a little bit longer to figure out how I actually feel about it, what the things are I like, what the things are I dislike, and whether those are actual downsides or more personal preference. So yeah, that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Be kind to yourself, have a good day, and yeah, ciao ciao.